Are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? If you're a woman, you're not alone. With over 1,000 hormone disruptors in our environment, it's no wonder things can feel out of balance. On top of that, natural changes like PMS, menopause, and other life stages can leave you feeling tired, irritable, and trapped in a constant battle with your body. But here's the good news. You don't have to suffer through it. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is here to help. This herbal formula fine-tunes your hormones, balancing estrogen, testosterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol, which can contribute to weight gain, racing thoughts, poor sleep, and more. With over 40,000 five-star reviews and a bottle selling every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. Ready to feel like yourself again? For a limited time, get 15% off your first order at happymammoth.com using code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
Coming up on episode 254 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the new Kia Sportage Hybrid and Nissan Altima all-wheel drive, Ford Bronco Everglades running through the muck, the Hyundai Ioniq 6, no more buying out your Ford EV leases, and touchscreens almost killing drivers at Pikes Peak, and a conversation with Jack Hollis. All that and more coming up next. Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. This is episode 254 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abuel-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from Reviewed.com.
Oh, that's a new one.
I've done some stuff for them. None of it's been automotive, but I am doing some folding electric bicycles for them.
Oh,
right
cool.
Now. So my garage, fortunately, they're not sending me 10 bikes at once. I'm getting like a set of 3, and then a set of 4. So... But I was like, yeah, let's give them some love. And, if you're getting an electric car, get an electric bike. You can ride it around. They're fun.
And Nicole says she's running late from the world's slowest dimmer, which I'm assuming is a typo, and she meant dinner. Start without me, and I'll jump in. So she will join us in progress.
It's just slowly getting darker and darker.
It might well be a slow dimmer. Who knows?
The world's slowest dimmer. She's like, I can't see.
She
it's
wants
turning
to stay
the light
in the light
on too
ahead
high.
of the dimmer.
Yeah.
So we'll see when she gets here.
We'll see. Dinner or dimmer. Let's make our bets now.
All right. So you had nothing to drive this week.
I have driven nothing.
Nothing. Just some folding electric bikes, which
just some folding electric bikes.
I mean, if you want to talk about one of them, you can. But
I've only I rode it down the street and back because there's a big hill, and I just wanted to see with one of them they could get me up the hill. In a reasonable fashion because it's pretty steep, and it did. So that's all I've done because I went out and then I ended up talking to my neighbor for 30 minutes.
Okay. Well, I had the 2023 Kia Sportage Hybrid SX Prestige all-wheel drive, another overly extended name. So this is the new Sportage, and the Sportage is there she is.
Whoa.
The Sportage is the last original nameplate from Kia when Kia first launched in the North American market. They launched back in the mid-'90s with the Sportage and a little sedan called the Cephia. And, well, neither one of them were particularly – well, I would say the Sportage was memorable, but in all the wrong ways, that first generation. I had a chance to drive one on a test track. The company I was working for at the time actually was doing the ABS for it. And, boy, that was a scary car. But this is not. This is a much better vehicle. And the this new generation of Sportage has gotten substantially larger than the old one. The old one, was on the small side of compact crossovers, and this one is very much, on the larger end, similar in size to the RAV4 and CRV and other stuff. Very roomy. It's got the same hybrid powertrain that's in the Sorento with the 1.6 liter turbo and electric motor, and a battery under the back seat. The design, it's a pretty substantially different design from the previous generation, and it doesn't really look much like any other current Kias. Probably the closest thing to it would be the EV6, but even that is quite a bit different in its design direction. So it'll be interesting to see where Kia goes from here with their design. But in most respects, it's a pretty conventional, compact crossover. It's like, aside from big pickup trucks, it's the strongest segment in the U.S. market now. It has taken over from the likes of the Camry and Accord and Altima as the top sellers. The hybrid system in here, I've always liked the Hyundai Kia hybrid system in terms of, the way they feel when you're driving. They feel the most normal of hybrids. They're pretty seamless when it's shifting back and forth between electric and hybrid and engine on modes. There's none of the motorboating effect you get from the CVT hybrids like the Fords and the Toyotas. But one thing I was a little disappointed with was the fuel economy. The front wheel drive Sportage hybrid is rated at 43 miles per gallon combined. The all-wheel drive is rated at 38. I only got about 31 and a half, which is the farthest I've fallen short of the label value in a long time, especially for a hybrid. And I've driven a number of other contemporary Hyundai and Kia hybrids, and they've all done substantially better than this one, and I'm not sure why this one did so relatively poorly. I mean, not that almost 32 miles per gallon is terrible, but it's certainly not what I was expecting from this vehicle. I was expecting something in the upper 30s. So other stuff, the interior, obviously a lot roomier than the old Sportage, or Sportage, as we should perhaps call it.
Sportage.
And the infotainment, it's the same kind of evolution of the Hyundai Kia system that we've been seeing on some other models like the EV6, including the strip along below the center touchscreen. And this was something that I initially had a challenge with on the EV6. It's actually a dual mode touch panel with a couple of knobs on it. So
it does take a little bit to get used to it.
Yeah. So one mode is climate control. And so if you want to adjust the defogger or the temperature or anything else like that, you turn and twist the knobs. Use a knob on the left, one on the right. Twist the knobs to adjust your temperatures, turn on the front and rear window defoggers, things like that. And when I drove the EV6, when I first got into it, it was in the climate control mode. And I went to twist the knob to adjust the radio volume, and it kept turning up the temperature. And I couldn't figure out how to get it to volume mode. And I ended up, just using the control on the steering wheel. And that's the one I drove to Elkhart Lake for the Mama Spring Rally. And I talked to James Bell from Kia there, and he showed me how to do it. There's actually one of the buttons on there. There's a little fan icon and an arrow icon, and when you tap that, it toggles back and forth. So if you go to the arrow version, it gives you media controls. So the temperature knobs become volume and tuning knobs, and the labels change on there, and the labels across the touch strip change. So you now have labels for navigation and media and assorted other stuff. So it's kind of an odd system. Once you figure out that you have to go back and forth, it works okay. But I'd rather just have dedicated stuff for things like that.
It's a cross between what JLR has done with the steering wheel, where it's contextual. You as you do things on the lights on the steering wheel they become different different controls, and what Volkswagen has when it comes to its front and rear window thing with the ID4. It's not nearly as bad as that. It's not quite as nice as the Jaguar thing.
Yeah.
I think what most people are going to end up doing is just leaving it on climate control and doing the volume with the steering wheel.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. That probably makes more sense. But when I went somewhere with my wife, she wanted to adjust the volume, and it was in climate control mode. And so I said, see if you can figure out how to adjust the volume. And
You definitely have to be told. You have to be told what it does.
Yeah, she, at least like myself, she was not able to figure it out without somebody telling her how to do it. So, let's see what else. Oh, the highway drive assist feature. So this is something that is on most new Kias and Hyundais and Genesis models. This is their combination of adaptive cruise control and lane centering functionality. And after having driven the Rivian just the other week, and that one has essentially the same function, lane centering control and adaptive cruise control. They have 11 cameras on the Rivian and 5 radar sensors. The Kia has 1 camera, one front radar sensors, a couple of rear radar sensors that use it for blind spot monitoring. The Kia did a lot better job of keeping the car centered in the lane. And, when you're going through corners, not wanting to drift outwards, just staying locked in the center of the lane. It's a hands-on system, unlike Super Cruise that I'm driving now. But it does a great job. I mean, you can just kind of keep your hands right by the wheel, just enough to give it just enough resistance so that it thinks your hands are there. But it will track down the road beautifully. It does a really, really good job. And then the only kind of dynamic complaint I have about it, there's a few spots along I-94 in near Detroit Metro Airport where there's a transition from the main pavement to a bridge overpass and back again, where there's kind of a little bit of a drop and come back up. And I think the Sportage feels like it could use a little bit better rebound damping when it's coming up, because it kind of comes up a little bit too far when it bounces back, and and then when it comes back down, the dampers kind of lock it down better. But just when it's coming up, it gives it a little bit too much bounce. But other than that, the ride quality is great. It's fairly quiet, and then just the kind of somewhat underwhelming fuel economy.
Weird.
Yeah. So the Sportage Hybrid starts at $27,290 for the front-wheel drive LX model. The one I had was the SX Prestige with all-wheel drive. So that's fully loaded with all the goodies, and the usual Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, 18-inch wheels. This one had the shadow matte gray finish, which looks quite good on this particular shape. And panoramic sunroof and Harman Kardon premium audio, LED fog lights, all the good stuff, and then some. And this one came out to a grand total of $38,000 even, including the $1,215 destination charge. So that is the 2023 Kia Sportage SX Prestige all-wheel drive hybrid, which it needs to be condensed.
The Kia Sportage Hyperprestige all-wheel drive.
And as I've been doing my little monologue here, Nicole has joined us. Hello, Nicole.
Hey, sorry about that.
We were discussing before your arrival.
Yes.
Were you in fact running from the world's slowest dimmer, trying to stay in the light, or was it a slow dinner?
I didn't say dimmer. It was actually, see, you can tell, like, I'm going to text Sam, I'm not going to make it in time. It was the world's slowest dinner. Unfortunately,
okay. That makes, I guess, more sense.
Yeah.
Whatever.
One of our favorite restaurants that is normally super speedy quick. And I'm like, so of course, today they weren't. I'm like, you guys, it's not a podcast. So apologies.
Come on. Come on, you guys.
You guys.
So what have you been driving, Nicole?
I am in the 2022 Nissan Altima 2.5 SR all-wheel drive. I don't know, is that longer than your Kia Sportage?
Altima SR all-wheel drive. Wait, was there another one?
Because I had hybrid and SX Prestige as well.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in there.
Shoot, dang it. So, sedans, which aren't the most popular of cars these days, but this is a decent sedan. It has a 2.5 liter four-cylinder engine, 182 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque. You're not going to win any races in this. It's not super aggressive, but it's competent, like accelerating on the highway, which I was aggressively doing to get here to record this podcast. I had no problem getting right up to speed. And it handles well. Yeah, just zoom right up there. So it's a nice car and it's quiet. Sedans are about just kind of nicely taking people where they need to go. Their focus isn't off-roading. Their focus isn't on cargo. Their focus is people. Excuse me. And this one does a good job of that. It's very comfortable. It's very quiet, nice and easy to drive, but still responsive enough that you feel like, it's not lackluster. It has plenty of performance for what you're getting. It is a $31,440 car. So it's not an outrageously expensive car. It's a nicely priced choice. And
it's also not outrageously affordable either.
No, but for what you're getting, this also is...
This is the all-wheel drive version, though, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And it's their Midnight Edition, which is something that's available on the SR trim. You can't get this on the other trims. And the Midnight Edition it's like $1,700, and it adds LED fog lights, heated front seats. There's power driver lumbar support, sliding moonroof. You get a fancy blacked out stuff. You get a Midnight Edition badge on the back.
Well, that's worth $1,700.
That alone is worth $100. And you get heated outside mirrors with LED turn signal indicators.
Ooh.
Well, those heated mirrors can actually be very handy in the wintertime.
Yeah, when it's all iced up and you're just like, no.
Because
I forgot to scrape off the mirrors.
Well, it's not even that. If you live someplace where it snows, you could have scraped off that stupid mirror. And if the snow is the right miraculous consistency of water and ice and cold temperatures, and it just builds up, and you're like, I could see out that side mirror when this trip started, and
Yep.
with snow and gravity. Then you're like trying to roll down your window and take that off, and you're either going on the highway going like 59 miles an hour, and now you're getting snow in your face, or you're trying to do it in a stoplight, freezing to I gotta get this cleaned off before I start going again. So heated side mirrors are actually kind of cool. So nice, comfortable car, easily seats 5. There's no problem putting 3 adults in the back of this. It's not something you necessarily want to road trip with 3 adults in the back, but it's very comfortable for shorter drives. And for 2 adults, yeah, totally could. There was, again, 6-foot husband and 18-year-old daughter sitting behind each other. Totally enough room for everybody. So that's my test for whether grown-ups can actually be comfortable in this car. Like, again, I don't know about Robbie because Robbie's a giant, but average grown-ups could be because he's a giant. You also get a whole bunch of driver assist features that are standard on this. There's rear automatic braking, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic alert, lane departure, sort of the usual suspects on this. And it does have it has an attractive interior. You get a leather wrapped steering wheel. You get a leather wrapped shift knob. There's an 8-way power driver's seat. It looks nice inside. Like, it doesn't feel like a cheap car. It actually I think it looks a little nicer than what the price tag is, honestly. Like, for $31,000, you're getting a really decent looking car. I like how it looks, and you get a decent amount of tech with that too. You have an 8-inch color touchscreen. There's Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is nice. There's 6-speaker audio systems. So it's not like you've got some fancy 24-speaker Bose premium whatever, but you have a nice, decent audio system. You have a nice, decent infotainment system that's easy to use. It's pretty intuitive. I think the system that Nissan uses does not take a long time to get the hang of. It has a nice, responsive touchscreen. So I like this. I've driven this sedan. It's funny. I drove this in a while back, and it with all-wheel drive during literally I saw it was like a blizzard that descended upon me as I landed at the airport and had like a 1-hour drive home. And it was like, well, it's either sleep at the airport Hilton or get in the car and drive home. And I drove it home. And I got to say, this handles amazingly well in the snow because the thing with like all-wheel drive is great, but part of a sedan problem too, if you're driving in rough weather, it doesn't matter how good your all-wheel drive is. If your snow is too deep and if you're driving over sort of those little berms created by the snowplows, you'll just bottom out and you're done and you're stuck. And this got through a lot of it. It handled really well. There was a lot of snow on the roads. So even though today it's nice and beautiful and sunny, I have driven this in the snow, and this was one of my favorite vehicles to have to drive as sedans go, to have to take through crummy weather. So if you want a nice, comfortable sedan that's not outrageously priced, that looks good, feels good, has good acceleration, and yeah, you can drive in the snow because I did it. This is definitely one to consider. I'm really a fan of this one. I like the Altima.
Cool. Yeah, and of course, this is the one weekend a year that you don't have snow in New Hampshire, right?
Right, the one. It's just this weekend. The rest of them snow all the time.
Okay, cool. So you also recently had the opportunity to drive something else.
I did. Entirely different vehicle.
Yeah.
I drove the, are we talking about the Ford Bronco Everglades? Is that where?
Unless there's something else you want to add in as well.
No, I feel like that's the one.
Yeah.
Ford is taking the Bronco and doing all the other things it can do besides just call it a Bronco. There's the Ford Bronco 2-door and 4-door. There's the Ford Bronco Raptor, and there's the Ford Bronco Everglades. I'm waiting for the Ford Bronco, whatever they call the winter edition. There needs to be one that's super snowy.
That'll be the Yeti.
The Ford Bronco Yeti. I like it because they have the Sasquatch.
And it'll come with a Yeti cooler in the back and a full set of Yeti
and it'll be
mugs.
the same like Sasquatch logo that's on things, but instead it'll be like a little white snowman-y Sasquatch.
Yeah, a little abominable snowman.
A little abominable snowman. So what this is, the Everglades is where the Raptor is like your off-road desert racing thing. The regular Bronco gets you through kind of like everything. The Everglades is the one that you want to take if you're going to drive through serious water. Think like the Florida Everglades. They didn't take us to Florida because I'm really thinking crocodiles and they don't want us all to die. So they took us to this place called Drummond Island, which is in northern Michigan. You have to take a ferry over there, put all your cars in the ferry, you drive out there. It's like this very rustic island, and there's tons of swampy, like mucking around in the dirt. I mean, real swamp, not like, a little puddle that's 2 inches deep. No, an amount of water that maybe it sometimes go, I know that you can wade 36.4 inches. I feel like we're past that. Like, it was a lot of water that we were.
This is why I was joking about leeches last week.
I know. And that's all I could think of, dang you. Like, we're going to get out. And I'm like looking at, and it wasn't, the spot I was at was just like muddy, but not like sink to your ankles. And I'm like, do I need the waders? I don't see leeches. Sam said they were leeches. Sam. And I'm like,
I don't know if there's actually any leeches there.
Oh, I'm sure, no doubt there was, because this is muddy, mucky, brown, swampy water that they have us driving through, which it sounds like I'm saying they tortured us. They didn't. It was actually really great because
we were torturing the vehicles.
We were torturing the vehicles, and there aren't many, you can't know if this vehicle does what it says without Ford going, well, here, we will bring you to an extreme version of what this can do and let you drive it through it. And the thing was, it did. It did everything it was supposed to. We're in water. I don't know if anybody who has ever been in a small boat, and when the water's splashing against the bottom of the boat and you can feel it underneath you, like if you're sitting a little, and you can hear it. It was just like that. But I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a car. And it's that sound and that sensation, and it's freaking me out a little bit. But we went through very long stretches of water that was, 36.4 is the maximum wading depth. I feel like we were right there. They had given us waders. So if we needed to get out, we had waders to protect us from the evil leeches and whatever else was in the mucky water that was there. And there was under the wheels, we drove an entire day. It wasn't like a 5-minute drive. We basically spent an entire day driving through mud and muck and rocks over rocks and along the water, because you're right along Lake Michigan. And we drove along there. It was an extensive and very tough drive. It wasn't for the faint-hearted. It was amazing. I mean, this did it. We had, this comes with a winch. You have a Warn winch that can handle 10,000 pounds. It's got 100 feet of synthetic cable, and Ford even worked on the winch. It's like, Warn winches are already pretty amazing, but they did a few little tweaks to it because they wanted it to resist corrosion and hold up a little bit better. So it's kind of like a Fordized version of this winch that's better than the average. We all have these winches. It's part of the package when you get the Everglades. We didn't actually need it, except there was a tree a tree that I'm still sort of slightly convinced that a couple of sturdy gentlemen could have just pulled out of the way, but the guy's like, no, we're
You
going
gotta
to
winch it.
yes. So he
Oh,
winched it out
a
of
couple of sturdy gentlemen might have put it in the way.
That's a good point.
the
This was a media program.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, it's true. But there was that one, and there was another little tree later on. It was we didn't need it. Like, there's 12 of us. We're going through this muck. Nobody is like a professional, swamp driver here. None of us got stuck. We all did it. And they
Swamp driver.
swamp driver. I know. I want to say like off-roader, but I feel like that's just generic. Swamp driver. Say swamp driver. None of us
Swamp
live
driver.
in Everglades. Yeah, these are for swamp drivers. If you're a swamp driver, and I got the car for you.
Well, the other reason they probably took you to Drummond Island instead of the actual Everglades is because there's also no Burmese pythons on Drummond.
You know what? I'm not listening to you with the things that are going to kill me in the water anymore, Sam. Shush.
So,
Did you hear about the one they just caught in Florida a couple weeks ago?
See that
cargo?
18 feet
cargos?
long, 215 pounds.
No, I don't. Everything in Florida. I feel like everything in Florida wants to kill you. It's big and scary and wants to kill you. It's like crocodiles, alligators,
And then there's the wildlife.
yeah.
Yep.
So yes,
Anyway, continue.
it was. I mean, the Everglades is a very purpose-specific vehicle, but it's you don't have to be driving it in those circumstances. It has a snorkel on it too, so you can handle this water. If you don't really need that, much like every other off-road vehicle, you don't have to do as much off-roading as they say you can do, but you can still buy it if you want it. I don't know how many people will need this kind of capability, but if you do live someplace where it's swampy, it is amazing. And to be able to get through all that water, and it truly, as you're driving along and you're looking at and some of these muddy ruts that we're driving through, that's like you can just see the vehicle just sink into the mud and come right out the other side. It was cool to see, and it is kind of exciting to think that you could do that. And it did prove that they built this to be able to get through that kind of off-road terrain, and it did it no problem.
I assume you didn't go doors off that day.
No, but some guys did do roof off, like they took the roof, and I was like, you people are nutcases, because you know what else swamps have? Mosquitoes the size of sparrows. I'm like, I am not.
Leeches, just flying leeches, just all over the place.
There. I'm like,
Well, the mosquitoes are carrying the leeches and dropping,
and they
dive
drop
bombing you
them.
with them.
See, I had my everything buttoned up nice and tight, but there was no way I was going to do that. But so there were. Did anyone have doors off? I know there were some windows open and there was roofs off. I know a couple of guys that forgot to do the sunscreen thing, and I'm like, you're bald. Put that sunscreen on, good sir. And there was a couple of Ford folks. I don't know why they picked white. Why you would wear anything white? And they went.
Seems like a lot of these folks just haven't done a lot of off-roading.
Well, the Ford folks have. These guys do. But
And they're all weak, and they're like, I'm gonna put some white on.
got like mud on them, and I'm thinking, and I wore like my nastiest jeans, beat up sneakers, and clothes, and I'm like, if these have to stay in a trash can in Michigan at the end of this, I'm okay.
They need to have everybody in the communications team actually go and spend a week with Mike Levine before they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Mike Levine lives in a house. I think he lives in a Ford Bronco in the desert.
Yeah.
You don't think he?
Well,
like, I'm out
he
here.
goes back and forth between a Bronco and a Ranger.
Yeah, I'm out here in the nowhere land. Here's another thing.
Yeah.
For those that don't know Mike, he is the director of North American product communications for Ford.
And he is constantly sharing images online of these most amazing sunrises and sunsets and starry skies when he's out there in the middle of nowhere with whatever Ford off-road thing he's driving at any given moment.
Yeah.
That's the Everglades. So it's pretty amazing.
How much is it? Oh, sorry.
I'm trying to get the starting price. I should have had that in front of me and I didn't. I'm going to blame dinner because I didn't open this up until the last second. But it's like in the $55,000-ish range. Which is like a lot, but not a lot. Think about what off-road vehicles more like really like capable, not just like, oh, you can put it in all-wheel drive and drive through that field. No, but like,
yeah, I mean, a Wrangler Rubicon or a Land Rover Defender is going to cost you at least as much. So,
right?
Yeah.
So it's not a crazy, outrageous price. It's a price that feels fair for what you're getting. And I, it was pretty cool. I mean, it was a unique thing, and I've done a lot of random off-road driving over the years, and this is the first time I've ever driven through anything like this. Though I've never had another OEM or another event where there was just so much mud and water and muck.
I think it's I'm hoping if you buy the Ford Bronco Everglades or any other vehicle and you're fording through water,
Yes.
Moving water like rivers and floods and what, like, don't drive through that. Even if it's only like a foot or like 18 inches, and you're like, oh, my car, no, that's not the same. Completely not the same. Because first of all, you're usually driving over concrete or asphalt, so you're going to slip. And water is very powerful. At the end of the day, water always wins.
There's a reason why the Grand Canyon exists.
Exactly.
You know,
Water
and
always
it's not full of water.
wins.
Like you truly do have to be careful going through water. You never even if it's standing water, like some of these spots, like they
don't know.
scoped out this course, so they know. But then we had really torrential rains right before. So some of it wasn't quite what it was literally 24 hours before, but they're saying, we know there's a rock here, we know there's a rock there. And there's things, if you just went blasting through this water that looks pretty smooth and calm and whatever, there are rocks under there that if you just hit them, you don't want to hit them like that. Like, go through with a certain amount of caution. You can't see what's down there. So pay attention to how you're driving and don't just go blazing through, even if it's, standing water, not like a river, which you shouldn't be driving through anyway. And I should also say they had the guys from Tread Lightly, I think it is, out there. So we were like on an area where you were allowed to drive. We weren't just randomly tearing up a natural preserve with no regard for anything. So it was very responsible off-roading before we went, because I know especially with water, people get very concerned about that. But
leeches. No.
Yeah, those leeches, you don't want to hurt the leeches. Oh, and also I just double check. I had 55 in my head because that was my ad. As sort of like as tested price, it starts at about 35.
Well, the Bronco starts at 35, but not the Everglades.
What's the Everglades start at?
The Everglades starts at 53.
Oh, does it start at 53? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And is it 4-door only for the Everglades?
Yes.
Okay.
4-door only. But I mean, is it that bad? I like the 2-door Bronco.
I don't want people in my car.
You don't have to bring people in your car. You can leave people behind.
I guess it's easy to get the dogs in and out. All right, I guess it's fine.
Especially with the muck. Imagine they've mucked around in that water. They're going to leap over the driver's seat to get into the back seat. You don't want that.
Yeah.
And,
I just make I put a little staircase in the back, and they just doot.
I'm glad you have a plan for the dogs.
And back to your point about being careful going through the water. The other thing you don't want to do, the other reason you don't want to go through water really fast is because there might be something sharp down there that's going to cut your tire.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to be doing is be stuck in the middle of a river with a flat tire.
Fortunately you have the winch, so you can just drag your car out and then change the flat tire.
Yeah.
If you haven't driven in water, like even if you get the Bronco Everglades, I don't recommend you immediately find 36.4 inches of water to wade through.
You want to build up to it.
Yeah.
Build up to it. Take a class. There's probably a class.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like, figure out how this work your way up, because if you just start driving through that kind of water, you're suddenly going to be in 4.5 feet of water and be like, whoops, and you're going to be in trouble. So don't, you can do this, but make sure you know how to do this before you do that kind of aggressive driving through water.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
We all did baby steps. We all learned, driving quickly,
Yeah.
We all learned that by driving slowly first.
Exactly. So be responsible when you're driving this thing. Don't be a lunatic.
That's right. Well, you should be that all the time.
Put it on YouTube so we can all point and laugh.
Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launch the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings.
One of the hardest parts of getting older is feeling like something's off in your body, but not knowing exactly what. It's not just aging, it's often your hormones too. When they fall out of balance, everything feels off. But here's the good news. This doesn't have to be the story of your next chapter. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is an herbal formula made with science-backed ingredients designed to fine-tune your hormones by balancing estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol. It helps with common issues such as hot flashes, poor sleep, low energy, bloating, and more. With over 40,000 reviews and a bottle sold every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. A survey found 86% of women lost weight, 77% saw an improved mood, and 100% felt like themselves again. Start your next chapter feeling balanced and in control. For a limited time, get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com with code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
All right. Let's stick with Ford for a minute. There was some news that came out of Ford this week that going forward, they are changing the terms on new leases for customers that are getting electric vehicles. Traditionally, when you lease a vehicle in the contract, they give you at the end of the lease term, they give you a price that if you want to keep that vehicle, here's the price you're going to pay for it if you want to buy it and just keep it forever. And I've only ever leased a vehicle one time, and we did end up buying it at the end of the lease and keeping it. But going forward for Ford electric vehicles, you will no longer have that option. You're going to have to give the EV back to Ford at the end of the lease. If you want to keep it, you got to just buy it outright at the beginning. You can't do a lease and then buy it.
Is that just people who are buying EVs from like here on out? Like if you have one, you'll buy it.
If you're currently already leasing a Lightning or a Mach-E, you're fine. You still have that option in your contract. But from now on, you can't buy it at the end of the lease. It's going back to Ford, and they'll decide where they want to put it. What do you think about this?
I'm confused at the it's because of batteries. I'm like, what do you mean? Because at least even a high end, at least with 15,000 miles, you get a 3-year lease. That's only 45,000 miles on the vehicle, unless you drive it. But even then, the battery should be fine.
I don't think that's
5%. I'm confused at the battery.
I don't think that's the real reason. I think what it is, they want to have more control over the resale value of these vehicles, because traditionally most EVs have experienced a lot more depreciation over time, over the first several years, because there was uncertainty among customers about what the condition of the battery is and all this stuff, and and also because of the tax incentives, the $7,500 tax break, that was generally factored in to the resale value. So if you bought a $47,500 EV and you got that $7,500 off, they figured the depreciation based on that $40,000 net price rather than the actual sticker price. And so you had the same amount of depreciation, but it was starting from a lower point. So your overall depreciation was greater. And I think, what Ford wants to do, and Tesla has done the same thing. They, in Tesla leases, you don't have the option to buy it most of the time. There have been some leases where they've done that, but most Tesla leases, you don't get the option to buy it at the end of the lease. You have to turn it back into Tesla. I think they have what Tesla has done is they have controlled the flow of used off-lease Teslas back into the used car market to try to keep the prices up and keep the prices high, rather than just flooding the market with all these off-lease cars, which is one of the problems that other automakers have traditionally had in the past is
i3
flooding the market with off-lease cars, and that's also one of the reasons why companies like BMW originally started doing certified pre-owned programs. So that basically what they were doing was taking trade-ins, but mostly off-lease BMWs, because BMW leases most of their vehicles. Most BMW customers don't buy; they lease, and so they were taking those, cleaning them up, refurbing them, and then reselling them with a warranty. And I'm sure that's what Ford's going to be doing with these. They'll parcel them out and do a CPO type program, and also make sure their dealers have some inventory of used EVs to sell.
I don't know why they said batteries, but whatever.
Well, I think that's what was speculated in some other reports, but I don't think that's entirely the situation. Also with EVs, yesterday, as we record this, we're recording this a little early this week because of the upcoming long weekend, Hyundai released photos of the Ioniq 6, their next EV that's coming out later this year. I think the full reveal is in mid-July, if I recall. But what do you think about the Ioniq 6?
It looks good. I like it.
Someone said it looks like a Pokemon. I forget who. Someone on the internet said the front looks like a Pokemon. And I'm like, oh, it does look like a Pokemon.
How's it? Now I gotta call it. Why does it look
Pokemon?
like a Pokemon? I don't see a Pokemon.
The front does look like a Pokemon.
Well, if it was bright yellow or something, it could be a Pikachu. But I feel like generally speaking,
there's a lot of Pokemon out there.
how does it look like?
You got to catch them all, Nicole.
I mean, which Pokemon are we talking about, Robbie?
I think it's just Pokemon in general.
Is it because it looks
like
cute?
If there was a Pokemon car, it would be the Ioniq 6.
I'm trying to just look at like the headlights and I guess it kind of has a Pokemon vibe. It's cute. But then you take your hand away and you look at the whole thing and you're like, ooh, sexy little car.
Pika Pika.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's got a bit of Mercedes CLS there with the slope in the back.
Yeah.
And you look at it in profile and you see the side glass, it kind of curves down a little bit towards the back end. And then the interior, the photos they showed are with the optional camera mirror system. So there's no outside mirrors. There's just a couple of little cameras on stocks that stick out at the base of the A-pillar, and then the dashboard curves up at either end, and there's a display there that shows what the cameras are seeing. So instead of outside mirrors, you get that interior display. But yeah, no technical details on this, although other than it's on the same eGMP platform as the Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6 and other upcoming models. I think there's some speculation somewhere that the range, would be over 300 miles, which seems reasonable since this thing has a very low coefficient of drag. I think it's only 0.21, so it's very slippery. But it doesn't look like the Ioniq 5, which I thought was interesting. It's still got a little bit of the pixel thing in the driving lamps, in the headlamp clusters. It's got the pixel lights there, but overall it doesn't have that kind of squared off shape of the Ioniq 5. It's a sleeker shape.
I think it's cool that they didn't just try to continue to make it look the same. That it's like they don't all need to look the same. Like it's a different look. I didn't want to just be iterations of the Ioniq 5, and it's
Yeah.
I like it.
Gotta get them all.
Yeah, it's good to see that they're at least going to do at least one electric sedan.
Yeah, they Hyundai and Kia, they're like sticking with the sedans. They're like, what, everyone else is like exiting this space. That means that those people won't sell cars, and people who want sedans will buy ours.
Yeah.
They said
okay.
You're saying that like people don't, drive them anymore. Yeah, but they might not drive them as much, but there's still a heck of a lot of sedans out there.
I'm still buying them. Not as much as the, teeny tiny SUVs, but teeny tiny is like, that's not even true.
Exactly.
They still sell, 250,000 Camrys and Accords each a year, and I think a similar number of Altimas. So, there's still a market there. It's not as big as it was 10 years ago, but it's still there.
It's not like
100,000. So many cars.
Yeah. All right. Another EV related story. This one last weekend was the 100th running of the Pikes Peak hill climb in Colorado. And in this one, there were a couple of drivers, including Randy Pobst. Is it Pobst or Pobst? I can't remember. I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
Actually, don't
anyway, driving Tesla Model S Plaids. And the touchscreen in there almost killed the two drivers because there was fog, and partway up the hill, they got into the fog, and their windshields fogged up immediately. And because there was no button there that you hit that turns on the defroster, they were, while they were racing up the hill at over 100 miles an hour, they were trying to find the defogger control in the touchscreen menus. So this is an example of why touchscreens do not belong in cars that you have to drive.
You need buttons.
Yeah.
I every time someone like leaves buttons in cars, I'm like, oh, thank you. And I think more and more automakers are like, you know what? I think we've gone a little too far with this.
I think they're swinging back.
There's a place for touchscreen, but there's also a place for buttons, and we got to put some buttons in here because people like buttons. And apparently, it makes it safer when you're flying up Pikes Peak at 100 and whatever miles an hour.
Although I do ever so slightly, not in defense of how it was, because I get it, it should have been easier to reach, but I feel like if I'm going to race a car like you do up Pikes Peak, do not find some of that stuff ahead of time.
What was that?
Would you find some of that
where the
time? Maybe locate things that might be important, like maybe make sure you could get to that pretty quick if you had to get to it.
Oh, we're going up in a mountain. It's going to get cold.
Maybe
we should know how the defroster works. Or just turn it on beforehand.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not like removing fault from Tesla or removing responsibility, but like
Also, as a car driver, as a race car driver, you should know about the second part of that is car.
Yeah.
Car part. The driver part, cool. The car part, I feel like maybe I should have looked.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the final story I've got for this week is TFL Truck. Those guys do some great work. They're out in Colorado, and they do a lot of interesting tests, especially if you're into towing and stuff like that. And they've done one of the interesting tests they do is their Ike Gauntlet. They go up to the Eisenhower Tunnel, and they drive with a truck with a trailer, and they drive down, and it's like several thousand feet descent. It's a pretty steep grade too.
It is.
And then they turn around and go back up. And normally, with a gas or diesel truck, you're using the tow haul mode, and one of the things they do when they're doing that test is they count how many times you have to tap on the brake during the course of the descent, for it to maintain its speed. Last week they did their Ike test with the Rivian R1T and with the Lightning, and going down the hill, the Lightning, they touched the brake one time at the top and then didn't have to touch it again because the regenerative braking was able to get enough deceleration to have a constant speed all the way down the hill. And it worked great. And then going back up, no problem at all towing. They were towing an 8,000-pound trailer back up the mountain. Had no problem at all doing it. Never overheated the battery or the motor. This time, just today or yesterday, they released a new video where they did a test where they compared the Lightning against the GMC Sierra Denali Ultimate with a 6,000-pound trailer on the back.
Oh, geez.
And wanted to see how far could they go on one charge or one tank of gas. And the Lightning didn't do so well. With a full charge, by the time they got to 85 miles, it was down to 9%.
Oh.
Yeah.
Time to find some charging.
Yep. And so they had to abort the test and actually go back, turn around and go back because the nearest charging station, DC fast charging station ahead of them was 40 miles down the road, and they only had 20 miles of range. And then there was one about 3 or 4 miles back behind them. This is, it wasn't level ground. They were going up a slight grade, but still, 85 miles going from 100% to 9% charge was not very confidence inspiring.
Wow.
Especially since, when they started off, that one thing they didn't actually do in the test is, and one of the things that in the interview I did with Darren Palmer when we did the first drive, he talked about they have the calibration mode. So when you hook up a trailer for the first time, there's you can go in there, you can give it information about the weight and the height and width and length of the trailer. But there's also a calibration mode where you can go and just drive it for 10 miles, and it measures actually how much energy it's using to drive that with that particular trailer, and it uses that to try to give you a more accurate range estimate. And when they started off, the range estimate was 155 miles, but they only managed to go a little over about 85 miles. And I think part of it is because they didn't do the calibration. So they could have known up front that they weren't going to be able to make it as far as they wanted to go. But still, 85 miles, not very good. It's 0.7 miles per kilowatt hour is what they got.
Whew. Yeah. If you got I think if you have a trailer because you go to the lake or you got a boat or whatever, you're still probably just going to need a big truck. And even then, I still think people, like, if you have a big truck just for that seems like a lot of money when you could just rent a big truck whenever you
if you're using it every weekend.
Yeah, if you're using it every weekend. Yeah. But I think I've seen a lot of boats that just sit there for like months on end. Yeah. And you're like,
that's because you don't have any water in California.
That's true.
We have lots of lakes here.
We have water too. We also have lakes. Not great, but we have lakes.
Next time I'm there, I steal some of your water, bring it back with me.
Just pick some back, so then you guys.
Like motorcycles and stuff. If you're someone who's like that's their thing, you do every weekend, awesome, go for it. But if you're also the person who's you got the jet skis or the motorcycles and you never ride them, but you got the big truck for them, that's a lot of money.
Yep,
it's a lot of money.
Especially
don't get an EV unless you're going unless they're pretty close.
Yeah, around here, there's a lot of lakes within a 30-mile radius of where I'm sitting right now. So, for me, I could easily use a Lightning, and towing, a couple of jet skis or in the wintertime, a couple of snowmobiles, 30, 40 miles, not a problem. But, you definitely, this is definitely something you need to consider. And, as I said, when we talked about it before, this is the one thing that the Lightning doesn't do better than the gas F-150 is long-distance towing. Short distances, no problem at all. But long distances, and this was a wide, tall trailer, so it wasn't particularly aerodynamic, but it's still tough.
Yeah.
Dems
right.
the brakes.
Yep.
I don't know what that means.
Let's answer a few listener questions. Starting off with Chintan Kamen, I think is how you pronounce that, from Twitter. He says, my kid is profoundly red-green colorblind, and we were talking about colorblindness.
Oh, we were talking about
last week or the
Yay.
week before. It's not that he can't see those colors or that he can't see other colors. It's that those colors look like a muddled, murky brown, and he can't discern between red and green. Good news, he gets his license in 2 years.
Oh, well, I mean but that's also why when you come to traffic lights, they're all like universally. It's always red on top, yellow, and then green at the bottom.
So then, when you have a car and it turns green for normal mode in your car and red he just sees murky brown and murky brown.
Yeah.
That was a good show. Murky
Super
Brown.
Cruise would not be great
I
for
thought
him.
the same thing when I said that, murky brown.
Remember Murky Brown? That one time they had Paul Rubens. He was their secretary once.
At least now we know what happens.
All right. Fozzie B says, curious, is anyone on the Wheel Bearings team scheduled to drive the Fisker Ocean? If not, curious what the general sentiment of the team is regarding Fisker's go-to-market strategy with Magna Steer. So it's still a little early. The Ocean's not coming out till the end of the year. They haven't given any invites to anybody to drive it yet. So probably, in the November, December timeframe.
I would think late
wonder
this
all of us.
year or early next, depending on how production goes. From what
Yeah.
they
With
said,
everything going on.
Yeah.
But what do you think about their overall strategy
Using Magna?
of using
build it?
Magna to manufacture the
Oh,
vehicles?
God,
for them,
that's a
do a lot of engineering?
genius.
Yeah.
That's a genius because they build the Supra, the G-Wagon, some other cars.
They build a lot of vehicles for a lot of manufacturers.
Yeah, people don't realize that Magna builds a lot of cars for a lot of manufacturers.
I think
So
it's a great idea to get somebody who knows how to build cars the first time you try.
Yeah.
Well,
better.
granted, this is the second time that Henrik has tried.
Well,
That's true.
it's splitting hairs, whatever.
And the first time didn't work out so well. So
Yeah.
so this time he got a better
What were
partner,
they using before?
Valmet. And but also last time around they tried to do more of the engineering in-house, and they didn't really have the resources to
Do it.
engineer the Karma fully. So it was kind of half-assed, to say the least. And so this time around, Magna's doing a lot of the vehicle engineering, and so I think things will work out a lot better for them.
Cool.
And then there was this is from some guy named Sam, responding to a tweet that you had, Roberto. But tell us about the time you were allowed to drive a tractor on regular roads before you got your license.
So when I was a young child in my teens, I got a job with the school. If you were poor, you could get a job with the school during the summer. That's all you had to be, was poor, and you'd show up. I thought I would done all this stuff to get this job like I did, but it turns out you just had to be poor. And so I got a job at the school farm, which is how I ended up in FFA. So at the farm, I was only I was 13 when I started, and then when I drove the tractor, I was probably about 14 or 15. So I'd worked at that farm for a few summers, and one day they're like, "Hey, we need a..."
So what they do is in California they use poor children as farm laborers.
Yes.
As underage farm
At
laborers.
school, or I could have been a janitor, or I could have worked at the bus barn. The bus barn is where all the mechanics were, and that's where the tractor was. And it was probably about, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 miles away. It's a small town, so it wasn't really that far away. So my boss, who was a teacher, took me over there to pick up the little John Deere tractor, and I had driven it before in class because there was no labor laws that I couldn't do it. And he was just like, "Oh, we got to get this back." And he just kind of looked around and was like, "Well, do you want to drive it back?" And I'm like, "Oh," because I wasn't allowed to use I wasn't allowed to use the weed whacker or the lawnmower. There's all these rules.
But you
With a
can
big
drive
giant
a
tractor, no problem.
But, but it was well, you know how to drive it. It's only down the street. It'll be fine. And so he gave me so he's like, go for it. And so I got to drive the tractor down through Tehachapi as a 15-year-old without a license. And it was the greatest thing ever. I was like, yeah. He's like, do not engage anything. I'm like, I know. I don't know why it felt awesome. It was like to be honest, I had been driving cars way before I had a license. I kind of got in trouble at some point because of that. But I was driving cars before I had a license. But for some reason, driving the tractor just felt way cooler. Doing like 5 miles an hour through town with a tractor, just like, hey, how you doing?
Side note, today, for the first time ever, I live out, there's a lot of farms and stuff where I live, and I was just out driving with my daughter, and apparently it's the time of year when you cut all the grass and you turn it into hay bales, and I've never seen this before, and I, for the first time, saw a little machine just drive along to cut hay, and then it little thing goes up and down, and then all of a sudden, a bale of hay goes shooting out of the back of it. And I was like, that might be the cool. And I was like, I literally stopped the car. I'm like, check this out. We're like, oh my God, that is I want to drive whatever.
The rectangular bales or the big round ones?
These are rectangular bales. And they literally, it's like the machine drives along and you see contraptions moving from the road. Things are moving. And all of a sudden, it goes shooting into the air, into the thing in the back. I'm like, I want to drive that. I don't even know what that's called. Is it a hay baler, I guess?
Probably.
I want to drive that thing. I just want little hay bales to go, food.
And it's super impressive because when you have the hay, when you snip it open, it doesn't just fall into.
No,
it's sectioned. It's like little sections. So you go, here's a flake of hay for this horse. Here's a flake of hay for this horse. Yeah, those machines are. I don't know. Genius built that thing.
I've never watched it. I was like, I mean, literally, there's a farm I could walk to 5 feet out my door practically. I'm like, how have I never seen this process before? It's the coolest thing I saw all day.
Yeah, driving tractor is fun. It's you don't have like an accelerator. You have you do have an accelerator, but it's like a lever, and you have to be careful. That's why there's all those. If you ever look at a tractor, there's all those weights on the front. Like on the front, there's usually like these big metal those are weights, so you don't do wheelies.
Oh, because you got so much torque, and
you have so much torque in the back, and it's it's built so we can you're attaching things to it. It's dragging.
You got a really low gear ratio.
Yeah, it's super low. So if you're not careful, you'll flip.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so that's why all those weights are up in the front.
Okay.
The more you learn.
The more you learn. Ding 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 ding.
Yeah, the more you know. Ding. Okay, sorry.
Next up, M. Burns asks, Jeep question number 1. With the new Grand Cherokee, will Jeep offer the EcoDiesel engine as an option at some point?
I don't know. Is diesel even a thing people want to do anymore?
Yeah, that. I don't know.
I doubt it.
I would guess no.
I'd say the chances are somewhere between slim and none.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Especially, now that they're electrifying, so you've already got the plug-in hybrid in the regular Grand Cherokee. They're almost certainly going to add that to the Grand Cherokee L at some point. It's going to be in the Wagoneer. And then there's battery electric versions coming in a couple of years. Yeah, so I would not expect it to ever see another Jeep diesel. And
it could surprise us, but it just doesn't. It's not. It would seem like an odd direction given what the direction of things in general is going, and especially with what Jeep has said that they're doing.
And Stellantis also just settled a similar Dieselgate case to what Volkswagen had just a couple of months ago. They paid I think almost $1 billion fine.
Wow.
For cheating on diesel emissions. Yeah.
If you're looking for something for hardcore towing, just to go back to towing, Jeep has Dodge. I mean, Stellantis has Dodge. The Dodge.
Yeah. Well, and
not Dodge or Dodge Ram. It's just
the Wagoneer.
I'm old school.
With the new Hurricane 6-cylinder, it'll tow 10,000 pounds. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before the Hurricane goes into the Grand Cherokee as well.
Yeah.
As an option in there, and it'll probably have similar towing capability. So yeah, and then if you need more than 10,000 pounds, just get a Ram.
Yep.
Get a semi.
Okay. Jeep question number 2. Nicole, you speak highly of your family's Jeep Wrangler Unlimited 4xe. If you had to buy a new Jeep Wrangler Unlimited, would you consider the EcoDiesel over the 4xe if cost and or availability of the latter were an issue?
I wouldn't go for an EcoDiesel because the whole reason that we got the plug-in, the 4xe, was because the niftiness of being able to drive in the quiet off-road, and the EcoDiesel does not provide that. So the reasons we went with that, other powertrains don't work. You know what I mean? So it's not that I wouldn't do an EcoDiesel. It's just that for me wouldn't have worked. What sold us on getting the one that we got was when I honestly, at the drive program, when I went and I'm like, this is amazing. Just driving out there in this, somewhere in Texas, and you're driving through this field and you can just hear the grass crunching under the tires, and you can hear birds chirping, and you can hear crickets.
Your skid plates scraping over the rocks.
You can hear skid plates scraping over the rocks. So it sounds really hokey. It's not like I'm like Mother Earth woman over here, but it was nice to be able to hear the world around you and hear the nature around you. And you can save that EV mode until you're off-roading in the 4xe. That's what made us do it. The diesel is not going to do that. So,
and it sounds like a tractor.
It sounds it's the exact opposite, I think. So I would not. If you were just looking for, I don't know, fuel economy, is that more what he's asking? Then
if you're doing small trips all week, I mean, I wish one of our cars was a PHEV. One of our gas cars was a PHEV, because I've just been doing small trips when my wife takes the car to work, the electric car. So I have the BRZ and the Jaguar. The Jaguar has a V6. The BRZ has a 4-cylinder. And I've been driving the BRZ a little bit more, and then I had to go put $60 in gas in it a little bit ago, a few hours ago, because it was on E and the light was on and it was hitting the little red thing.
I must do it.
And while I'm filling it up with gas, I'm like, I love this car, but I wish I had another car that was either a PHEV or an EV. Just
like I would wait if availability of the 4xe is an issue, and I know that it is. Availability of everything is an issue. If I could wait, I would just wait. I'd be like, well, not getting a new car this week. I'm getting a new car whenever. Yeah. If you're looking, like Jeep says it's going to be another month. Okay, it's another month. Jeep says it's another month. It's really another 3. Okay, it's another 3. Like I like the 4xe enough that I would wait for it unless I had to buy something else because my other car went.
Okay. And then final question from Mr. Burns. Also a diesel question. In general, are diesel ICEs, it's internal combustion engines, a bad investment right now? If you can't afford to get into a PHEV or a BEV, is there longevity at all in, say, the Ram, Jeep, EcoDiesel, ICE models? So the Jeeps, do they even still offer the diesel in the Wrangler? I can't remember.
I'm
not sure.
Blank.
I know.
Speak amongst yourselves.
They do, it's the only one.
You do the Googling, Robbie.
Yeah. If they do, the Wrangler is the only one that still offers a diesel. None of the others currently do. And then there is the Ram. And I think the answer depends a lot. If you're going to do a lot of long distance towing, then a diesel is actually probably your best option, because that is kind of the ideal use case for a diesel. Under load, relatively constant speed, those things they rock. You're gonna, with a gas engine, and going back to the TFL video, the Denali that they were driving with the 6.2 liter V8, that thing only got 7 miles per gallon towing that trailer.
Oh my God!
So it didn't actually do a whole lot better than the EV.
Wow.
But with a diesel, if you had that truck with GM's 3-liter inline 6 diesel, pulling that same trailer, you probably could have got close to 20 miles per gallon. And the same thing is true with the Ram. So if you actually do a lot of long distance towing, the diesel is actually your best option. Anything else, I would probably not go for the diesel at this point.
I wouldn't. I don't think I would. I don't even necessarily think it's like, is it a bad investment? I just don't see. I just would, unless I'm towing, I wouldn't do it. Unless I'm towing, I wouldn't do it.
I mean, they're more expensive. The fuel is typically more expensive, at least here in the U.S. And I mean, I'm a fan of diesels. I like diesel engines. We used to own a Jetta diesel until we had to sell it back to Volkswagen. But so I do like diesels. I like the torque that they make, and and in a lot of cases I like the sound that they make. Like I like especially the GM diesel. The Stellantis EcoDiesel is not quite that refined. But the GM diesel is a fantastic engine. And, if you were going to get an internal combustion light duty truck or SUV from GM, I would seriously consider that one. Like I say, especially if you're going to do any towing or, regularly hauling heavy payloads. That's where that engine rocks. Because I had an Escalade with that diesel in it last year and got 22, 23 miles per gallon with it. And I've had the Ram diesel before and gotten 23 miles per gallon with 1,000 pounds of fencing material in the back in the bed.
No mulch.
No mulch that trip.
Oh.
Mulch isn't even heavy enough. The diesel just laughs at it.
That was just building a fence for somebody around their yard. So for those kinds of use cases, diesel's great. Everything else at this point, you're pretty much better going either plug-in hybrid or battery electric.
Yeah, so you can get a 3-liter V6 turbo diesel engine with the on the Wrangler. It's $3,500 more.
Okay.
So it's more expensive.
Yeah, on the GM full-size SUVs like the Escalade and I think the Tahoe, the diesel is actually the same price as the 6.2-liter V8. So you can, if you get an Escalade, you can pick either one for the same price.
Mm-hmm.
Escalade.
The Escalade. Not the Escalade, just the regular Escalade.
Just not the Escalade.
Yeah. All right. I think the only other thing we've got for this week is I've finally got the interview I did with Jack Hollis during Toyota Palooza. Jack Hollis is now the Senior Vice President of the Automotive Operations Group at Toyota. The week after we were there, he got promoted. I can't remember what his old title was when I talked to him, but he's basically in charge of all the automotive stuff at Toyota North America now. And so we talked about EVs and hybrids and Toyota and so on. So I'll drop that in here, and we'll say goodbye and talk to you next time.
See ya.
Have a nice 4th. Do some
Bye.
barbecuing or whatever you people do. Bye.
It's been a busy week for everybody, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
You guys have announced a lot of things this week. We've seen and driven a number of different things. One area I'd like to start with is kind of this transition that is happening in the industry right now, and how Toyota is looking at it. We've got this shift towards more electrification, connectivity, more advanced ADAS systems, automation. How is Toyota going to handle this transition? How do you see it impacting the kinds of products you do and how you deal with customers, especially around education around these technologies?
Okay, you got there's a couple of things that I could go with, and I want to make sure that I answer. So I'll go one way, and then you can.
Okay.
Let me know if I'm
kind of an open-ended question.
Well, it is, and I want to make sure I hit the core, because I think that it's really critical to understand what we're looking at as a company, because it's battery electric that we're bringing as a company. We've seen a lot. Mm-hmm. It's not exclusive to Lexus or Toyota, right? It's across both. Mm-hmm. But the way the taste of each of our brands is going to handle some of these things slightly differently, right? Like we do on every other product. Mm-hmm. So when you look at, there tends to be a bit of a difference. At the luxury side, the Lexus side, you have a lot of consumers who are going and getting a lot of education around the entire EV infrastructure, EV ecosystem. What we have found is you find some of the more luxury buyers, they're installing chargers in their homes prior to purchasing a vehicle. Uh-huh. They're going and getting educated with a private, electrician, and they're setting up their house, and people who are building new homes at a luxury level. I'm here in Texas, next door neighbor, they're building it with the one neighbor directly next to me is building it with a fast charger in his house. I don't know why he needs a fast charger.
A DC fast charger?
Yeah, but so why does he need that? But he is committed to that, right? that's a luxury buyer. He already has 2 luxury vehicles in the home, one being electric, one not. But so I want us to separate these. So there's an education level, though, that has to be across the entire EV ecosystem, both at Toyota, Lexus, and the industry. Okay, so with that said, we're putting forth a lot of efforts with our dealers to make sure that we are first starting by the educating of our dealers of all of the elements for them to start to consider. And at the exact same time, we're encouraging our dealers to look at themselves not as a EV product seller, not just an EV vehicle seller, but an EV ecosystem concierge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's a good way, a good perspective on it. I think is an EV system concierge or ecosystem concierge.
Okay, so since we're doing that, I need you to understand is that your question is what are we doing specifically? Well, I can't really call out each one of those, but we're going beyond what the normal is, which is product knowledge or EV charging. That's the basics. We're talking about everything from home charging versus public charging, education on your vehicle, and what does that mean? Tire wear. Tire wear right now, industry-wide, is somewhere about twice as fast as normal tire wear. If you look at the companies out there. Well, what does that mean for you, Mr. Customer? So there's elements like those that were there. So to answer your question of where we're going, is we are going to is what is the maximum amount of education we can provide. But we can't just look at it as just for our own brand. We have to look at the EV ecosystem because we want customers to experience the joy of an EV vehicle. And to do so means you have to do more than give them just product knowledge.
Right. Okay.
You gave me an open-ended question. I gave you an open-ended answer.
No, that's great.
A longer answer.
No, that's great. You know, because I think that idea of educating people around the ecosystem, because the ecosystem is, it's not just the vehicles that are changing, it's the whole ecosystem, charging versus fueling, and how you service and maintain these vehicles over their lifespan.
How much time does it take to charge the vehicle?
What kind of planning do you have to do for a trip?
What kind of planning do you have to do for a trip? There's so many different elements here. But where you talk about us showing, and one of the things we tried to share, I think, this week that I think we've done a really good job. I really think is that that's just on EV because it's the quote unquote newest right now.
Right.
That same education and planning is also around things like how does the hybrid system work? How does the plug-in hybrid system different? How is different? How is that different from EV? And how is that different from fuel cell, the hydrogen fuel cell technology? Because all four of those have distinct educational needs and consumer feedback based upon their own. They need to make a decision of what vehicles best fits their driving and their ultimate needs. So the education piece, I love the word, I appreciate that. The education and training right now is one of our probably most critical focuses right now.
Okay.
Both for internally for the dealerships, us with the dealerships and the consumer. There's two pieces, right? Two streams of work.
Right.
And they're both really hot right now.
And since the dealer is the interface with the consumer, it seems like it's particularly important to make sure they understand.
Absolutely.
So that they can transmit the messages back in both directions, both from the company to the consumer and from the consumers to provide the feedback to you guys.
And listen, I'm going to go every single time you give me a chance like that. I'm going to tell you why I expect and why I know that Toyota and Lexus will be successful in this. And that's because when you continue to look at the relationships that we have with our dealers, as rated by NADA being number 1 and number 2 for now double-digit years, the relationship we have with our dealers is a both-way situation. Us helping them to be best for the customer, and then the customer through them helping us be the best we can backwards. It means back and forth. That's why I'm so confident in whatever ways we go, we're going to be effective because that relationship is solid. That communication is solid. That's the overall relationship with us, with our dealers and the consumers that has the right balance.
Yeah, and over the past year in particular, there's been a lot of discussion that around the whole idea of, trying to achieve carbon neutrality and what are, there's no silver bullet solution to getting there, which is why you're still very much committed to hybrids and fuel cells, finding the best tool for the job, whatever that job is. And not every driver has the same job.
That's right.
And they don't need the same tools.
Your needs, where do you live?
Just outside of Ann Arbor.
Okay. The needs of a person living in Detroit Metro, Chicago, LA, New York, Houston, are significantly different than if you're living in Colorado Springs or Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Charleston, West Virginia, right? You have different needs. The city life of driving, where your round trip to work might be 25 miles, and your round trip in larger cities is 50 miles. I mean, there's a significantly different need on your product. And like you said earlier, you want to plan a trip to go see grandma, that trip of 500 miles to 900 miles or 1,000 miles, that changes everything.
Yeah.
So what is it your needs? And I think what's specific is, if we play this out the way it's always been done in America, is if you let the consumer decide between multiple choices that benefits carbon neutrality, you will get to carbon neutrality a lot faster than trying to push them only into one powertrain. Because the consumer still should have the choice and should make what's best for them while still reducing carbon.
I have, with dealers, certainly, we've seen in certain parts of the country, EVs have had a much higher rate of adoption than other parts. California, is the main one, but even here in Texas, there's a pretty strong rate of adoption, and a lot of southern states. Do you ever foresee a time when you might start to have, even though you're maintaining this diversity of powertrains, where you might start to see some of your dealers start to specialize in one area or another? I know, we've heard that from Ford, around their reorganization into Ford Blue and Model E, where they want to have some dealers that are focused on EVs, or in your case, it could be hybrids or ICE vehicles for certain markets. Do you see that as something that would, for Toyota at least, for Toyota and Lexus, that would ever be potentially desirable or useful?
That's a fantastic question, and it's a different way of looking at it than I've heard before. It's clear that California's adoption is and always has been on newer technology. They've been early adopters. So when I see through a lens of a California dealer, I see them adopting earlier. Are you asking me between? Let's just take. I'm trying to get I want to make sure I understand what you're specifically asking. Are you talking about? Do you think there'd be a specialized difference between one dealer in LA and another dealer in LA?
Yeah. Would there be? Do you foresee a time when there might be some Toyota dealers in LA or anywhere else that sell only EVs while others sell the full lineup?
No, I do not see that.
Okay.
I do not see that. That's why I want to make sure I was clear with your question.
Yeah.
I don't really see that. I see that there are areas of the country which will have higher, like we do today. In Texas, you see a higher percentage of trucks being sold. When I go to Florida, you got a higher level of Camrys being sold. If I go to New York, I got Corollas being sold. If I go to different places, Colorado, it's a mix. So when I see that, I see the different. There's different models. But based on powertrain, do I see somebody being exclusive on this or that? No, I don't. I see that the full lineup across both in the state and then through the country.
Okay. One of the things we've seen in that book with Andrew Gilliland earlier about this. Especially over the past year with the supply constraints, some other manufacturers have seen a marked shift to consumers, from the traditional approach in the U.S. market of buying vehicles out of dealer inventory to ordering vehicles. Is that something that you're seeing at all for Toyota? I know for Lexus, I guess it's mostly been ordering from what's incoming, and Toyota and Lexus, both traditionally had fewer buildable combinations of vehicles. But are you seeing any kind of shift towards, consumers ordering a specific vehicle that they want?
First, I'd say that we're seeing the same evidence in both Toyota and Lexus. Okay, we're not seeing any differences, and right now that's because I think there's still such a large gap between this supply and the demand. With the demand being so high still, we don't see a big difference.
Okay.
Two is, I think that the idea of taking an order or a vehicle ordering to be specific is more about them. It's more like reserving, right? And versus an order. I want to make sure we're clear. There's not a lot of consumers who are ordering, and I want this car this way. No, it's here are the vehicles we have coming in, and a consumer is saying, I would like to reserve one of those.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we're defining things a little bit differently. And in that, we are seeing the dealer model really being able to spend a lot of time with that customer. So it's funny, some people think it's less touch. It's actually more touch because with a vehicle coming in, the consumer is saying, I want to raise my hand for that vehicle. They want to make sure they're raising their hand for exactly what they want. So they're spending a little bit more. There's a little bit more of a personal touch. So what we're seeing is a little bit more time taken, right, to find that vehicle. We're also seeing very few people who reserve it and then walk away. Those reservations are happening. They're landing. They're staying there, and they're committed. And so we're seeing that as a trend across both Toyota and Lexus of a lot more, if you want to say, satisfaction with their purchase process. Because taking the time. Third is while we will definitely plan to keep our inventory at a lower level than we have had previously. You've heard that in different numbers. I don't really want to get into the exact number of inventory. I can simply tell you that we in conjunction with our dealer council, both at Lexus and at Toyota, we will maintain a shorter amount of ground stock inventory, but allowing a lot of this reservation. And then, are you familiar with both of our Smart Path for Toyota and Monogram programs?
No, not so much.
It's our online, our digital solution.
Yeah.
On both of those, so let's take Smart Path for Toyota. It was developed by a group of dealers for dealers, right? They helped us to develop the system. That system where really you can go on, shop, build, order, deliver, purchase, everything online, right? That becomes more of a model that dealers are going to be wanting to use, allowing that customer a lot more of the control and the flexibility in that buying process. So I do see that growing.
As part of that, do you see the dealers being involved in, if the customer is doing their order online, configuring their vehicle online, do you see the dealers perhaps participating in that, maybe through a chat or some mechanism to help guide them how to figure out what they want?
All the time. And our system that we created it's a direct sales, but through the dealer.
Okay.
So the dealer can activate, and at any moment you can chat, call, come in. You could say you could shop and configure, come into the dealership, and the dealer could pull it up because it's saved right there. The dealer, let's look at it together. So it's a lot of touch from the dealer.
Shift to connected services.
Okay.
Several years ago, Toyota moved to an in-house telematics platform from using an external platform. How are you seeing the consumer adoption of that? Beyond trial periods, are you satisfied with the take rate? I guess that people are subscribing to those kinds of services.
Gosh, you're opening up a big one. One, I'm never satisfied because I don't think we've ever reached it, and that's part of the Kaizen approach at Toyota. We always need to get better.
Right.
So no, I'm not. However, where we are today has exceeded the expectations that we set for ourselves. Some of the internal metrics of connectivity and subscriptions, and so we've exceeded the original expectations. So the question is that because the system's better or our expectations were too low? I mean, we can go back and forth on this. My point is, I think where we are right now is actually on the right growth curve and the right learning curve.
Looking, a few years down the road from now, is we're getting more and more software-defined vehicles out there, and features being available as over-the-air updates or things that you subscribe to. Do you see that as being a significant part of Toyota's revenue stream going forward? I guess what kind of feedback are you seeing from consumers about their willingness to subscribe to features?
Okay, well, I don't know. When we talk about words like significant revenue, I would say this. The idea of software first, you probably heard us talk about it in the Toyota and Lexus line where you're taking a software first approach, is clearly part of our going forward strategy. Two is I think there's a difference between the consumer's expectations or what is their expectations of, required in a vehicle that they believe should be purchase price, and then there's other than optional that are services. So I think what the first is to really understand from the consumer's point of view, what is the table stakes? That to me is a little bit of what that I think we're still trying to figure out from the industry level. What must a vehicle have that's part of just the purchase of a vehicle, and what is then more an optional or an upgrade to what you want out of your vehicle? No different than if you buy a streaming service, or how many streaming services do you need for your TV? Do you have Disney Plus and Apple TV and Roku? And I'm making it up now. The question is each individual wants to have the basics covered. That's what I think that's right now where both Toyota and Lexus as well as the industry is trying to figure that out. And that's going to be who can listen to the customer best to provide that. And that's what we're working on right now.
So let's take, for example, something like Teammate.
Okay.
A feature like Teammate.
But now you're switching over from connected services to autonomous features.
But where I'm going with this is as a feature that you would subscribe to. So you look at Tesla as an example. They build in the hardware for their so-called self-driving system on every vehicle, and then you can purchase that as an over-the-air software update.
Got it. I got it.
Or you can subscribe to it. Do you think consumers are going to be interested or willing to pay for a feature like Teammate as a subscription, as opposed to, I bought the car with this hardware on it, I expect to be able to use it?
I'm going to tell you at this point, it's too early to tell. Okay. And that's part of what I think we need to research. Not research, we need to learn more. I believe there's a value to Teammate that has a value proposition or a cost. There's a cost, and there's a value proposition to the customer. Whether that becomes an optional as a service or included as a hardware expectation is what I was saying a little bit earlier.
Right.
That is really where we're trying to draw a line and figure out what do we know this is. Because you need to have, you need to have critical mass on what is an expectation. Today, you used to be, let's go to some of the basics of airbags in your car. Well, today you can't charge for how many airbags.
Right.
Because it's the expectation that airbags are there for okay. Well, every service that's provided, at some point people are going to be like, that service is just supposed to come with my vehicle. I want to turn my radio on and it's place. Right? Well, what apps am I getting to use in my car? So the answer to that question regarding Teammate or anything else like that has to be decided by the customer value.
Okay.
All right, I think we're out of time.
All right.
They got me on they got me on a treadmill for the next 2 hours.
Okay. Just any last thoughts that you want to share about Toyota?
I think that where we're at for both Toyota and Lexus as part of in this industry is you have a significant number of companies making very large strategic decisions for long term. If you look at every day, there's somebody who wants to make a statement in through your publication or anyone else's, right? Everybody wants it. And I think you have a lot of speculation. I still believe in the history of American economics is listening to the customer. And I think those who listen to the customer, this is not one company or a government telling us what to do. This is about what is the customer's value proposition will win the day. And why I'm confident in both Toyota and Lexus is I think that's what we do better than anybody in the industry.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate it. Anytime.
Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly parts.